Hello, Rhonda. How are you?
Hi. Good morning, Fabio. I'm good. How are you?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Natalie is coming, and soon we will start the class. That's
Okay.
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 And my director, Ricardo, will send an email, Adam, to make the my trip at Loma Linda official
You're good.
in next days.
Next year?
Next dias, Ricardo's will send an email to Adam to formalize my trip at Loma Linda in next year. I hope. E
Oh,
I,
I
e I
think it
sent,
will be good. I think it will be good, Fabio. And we have data coming probably by then with either centenarian data, like older people, or the Adventist House study can. So there'll be lots
yes,
of option.
yes. I sent some project ideas to you in the last week, and in Sunday in tomorrow I will be a class in English para learn more and to listen and speak a better. I
Yes.
hope in the next year study with us and realize some project like Centenaries or
Yes.
other
Yes.
projects.
Yes, there will be one. Yes, Fabio. I think we can get when you next year we can have another meeting and kind of see what project you like to do.
Yes.
Yes. One.
But thank you for
Yeah.
patience,
Yeah.
for time and help.
Yes. Wonderful.
And the students is wait in Natalia. Soon I will send message for Natalia.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, Natalia. Natália, eu acho que a gente podia. Você pode explicar para a professora Rhonda que a gente vai. Então, assim, a finalização do semestre, e daí é uma aula especial que a gente está tentando fazer a parceria com eles, numa linda. E então é uma horinha aí da palestra deles e depois a gente já inicia. Daí você explica como você pretende fazer, ela fala, daí você faz a. Aí eu, antes da aula, antes de você apresentá-la, antes de você dela iniciar, eu apresento ela para a turma.
Tá bom, pode deixar. Professor Rhonda, I'm just going to explain to the students how it's going to be the dynamics of our class and then we get started, okay?
Okay. Okay.
Pessoal, boa tarde. A professora Rhonda Spencer é da Universidade Loma Linda, então ela vai fazer uma palestra para nós sobre os estudos que ela tem conduzido na área de promoção da saúde. A gente vai pedir para ela falar devagar, para que todo mundo possa compreender. E tendo dúvidas, vocês podem ir escrevendo no chat ou levantar a mão se quiser perguntar, eu posso ajudá-los aí a traduzir se for preciso, tá bom? E aí no final a gente vai ter um tempinho para perguntas e tudo, e eu ajudo vocês aí na tradução se for preciso, beleza?
E então, pessoal, boa tarde, obrigado por vocês estarem aí. A Laiane preparou um lanche especial para a turma. Obrigado, Laiane. A Laiane é cuidadosa com cada um de vocês. Obrigado, a Natália, que vai nos ajudar aí nessa aula. E a gente quer agradecer mais uma vez a professora doutora Rhonda Spencer, da Loma Linda University. A Universidade de Loma Linda, a gente sabe que tem feito vários estudos sobre centenários, as Blue Zones, e a professora Rhonda é uma das pesquisadoras com os idosos centenários de lá. também estuda a questão da infância, burnout, resiliência e outros temas. E a gente está se aproximando cada vez mais para a gente tentar trazê-la também como docente convidada aqui do nosso curso na área de epidemiologia. Então, thank you so much, Dr. Rhonda Spencer, for your time, for your attention. E ela vai ministrar então essa palestra para a gente e a Natália vai fazendo aí a mediação.
So, Professor Spencer, if you want to share your screen, please feel free. And if you can speak slowly so everyone can understand you easily, we would thank you a lot. Anything you need, just call us.
Okay. Let me see. Go. Okay. Okay. Hello, class. I wish I was there to speak with you in person. Are you, Natalia, do you translate or no, I just speak and go?
No, you can go
Okay.
on. I think everyone can understand if you speak slowly. And then by the end, if necessary for the questions, then I can do the translation.
Okay, okay. All right. Excellent. Wonderful. I will try to work on speaking slowly because sometimes about this lecture I get very excited because this is so important for what we're facing today with all the challenges after the pandemic and everything. So this presentation I'm going to give to you I have been giving since the pandemic, even before the pandemic began, but it has exploded since the pandemic and onward. Basically, my title is Wisdom from Centenarians for Overcoming What Life Throws Your Way. And this is applicable for anybody. So, one of the questions I typically ask people and tell them, put in the chat is what is the stress that you currently face today? Right? What are the challenges? And usually the students will say, from the homework, from certain professors, from costs of just trying to financially fund your studies to to how do you balance life and everything. Um, and it is usually broad and wide and many stressors. Some are even caregivers for their parents, right? Everything. Then for my faculty that are on the call, our stressors is, oh, even the class loads and making sure of everything, coordinating all of this stuff. Well, this was me, okay, like 10 years ago when I decided to study centenarians. So I'm an epidemiologist, and when I see a problem, even if it's my own stress and my own problem, we go and study it, right? So this was me. I was burnt out. My youngest daughter at the time was one. She's not, this is 10 years ago. She was one. And I was just stressed. I had gotten a report. I was vegetarian, exercise every day, and I got a report from a physician that I had high cholesterol, high blood pressure, and my spouse had it too. And I thought, how can this be? We live in the land of longevity. We live in Loma Linda. I exercise every day. I'm a vegetarian. But there's a link with all of these health factors and stress. Okay. So want to show you guys what is causing the stress in your body. Okay. You're going to think of the daily struggles. We typically think of the mental aspect. Everybody thinks when you say stress, you go to your driving, your homework due, your everything, your daily struggles. But stress is anything that can take your body out of its normal homeostasis, right? Guess what? If you live in a place where there's air pollution, which Loma Linda, we actually have really bad air quality at times. Not so bad now because it's winter, but in the summer it's really bad. You can't even see the mountains sometimes. So environmental pollutions cause stress on your body that you can't see. Okay, because they have studies is what it does. Even viruses and bacteria, when you're exposed to them, they cause stress on your body. And then there's even stress from your childhood called adverse childhood experiences. And it's things like if there's a death in the family, divorce, trauma, anything like that. These things work together and they enhance the stress impact on your body. And I call it the invisible dragon. Okay. So inside your body, it's causing you even greater harm. And what happens? What's the price we pay for chronic stress? Basically, chronic stress works through the inflammation in your body And on multiple layers, you're going to see daily outcomes. When you're stressed, you're more likely to make mistakes, more likely academic decline, burnout, all of these things. It affects your immune system. It's linked with chronic disease. All of these diseases from obesity, diabetes, just even premature death. Okay, so that not just the health. Guess what? When you're stressed, how many of you will be short with your friends or short with a spouse, right? It happens. It affects your happiness and even your purpose. And how do you reach your purpose in life, right? If you have all this stress pulling you away, it's very difficult. So that was me back in 10 years ago, and I decided um, I wanted to study people who may have gone through stress, right? There are key communities in the world where people live exceptionally long, right? And Loma Linda, which is basically it's Adventists that not only live in Loma Linda but everywhere. And so they have likely a buffer strategy for how you handle life's unexpected things, not just the stress that we know of, but even the stress that we don't know because because they live a long time, but also because in the Bible, in Job 12:12, it says, wisdom is with the aged and understanding in length of days. Okay, so who has the longest days? These centenarians. They have great wisdom for us for what we face today. In fact, I had no idea that I would be asking him about the pandemic prior to the pandemic. And we'll talk about that a little later. So let me see if I can. Okay, so those longevity regions, it's your blue zones, guys. Loma Linda, you all know, is Adventist, and it's not just those living in Loma Linda, it's everywhere. So Adventist, Nicoya, Costa Rica, Sardinia, Italy, Ikaria, Greece, and Okinawa, Japan. Is this limited? No, there's probably more. It's just that these guys have studies published on them. Okay. So Loma Linda, from the Adventist health study that started way back in the 70s, we know that they do have decreased obesity, diabetes, these health problems, COPD, and they have enhanced longevity. Okay. From the studies they've done with the Adventist health cohort, they see the Loma Linda community members, which is Adventists, they tend to live longer than the general public, even up to 10 years. Okay, so it's a different. Um, we die of the same thing. So we're going to either die cancer, heart disease, other things, but we die at a later date. So, and some of them I say they forgot to die because they end up living very long, very long. Okay. So I understood this. I know the biology of stress. Actually live in Loma Linda. Um, I am a research professor, epidemiologist, and then I'm a mom. So at that time, I have three kids. My youngest was one. And I realized, wow, what would the centenarians advise on stress and how we handle? Because this has never been studied in the Adventist health study. We look mainly at their diet. But I know that to live long, they probably handled stress very well. So I decided, and this was very hard for me because epidemiologists, we like numbers. We want the data. In fact, your professor, I'm hoping he'll come to Loma Linda and we're going to analyze data together. But this side was qualitative. So after IRB approval, I went out to see about not only about their childhood experiences, positive and negative, but across their lifespan. Okay. And I began interviewing them. This one, I always like to ask, this one is my baby and my mother-in-law and her aunt. And her aunt in this picture is, I think she was 102, 101 here, 101. She's over 100. And you would not be able to tell. She lives independently. And up until at 100, she was still driving her car, but she had fallen in her garage. So her kids took the keys and said, you can't drive anymore. And during the interview, she expressed she was irritated because if she just had her car, she could go to get her hair done on Friday and then to church on Sabbath the following day. And she could drive herself. Here she is. And the only chronic condition when I asked her, did you ever have anything? And she said one time she had an ulcer, she thinks. But if you look at her, she has nothing. The only chronic condition you can see is she's wearing glasses, right? And she has a cane by her, but she doesn't really use it. But she's wearing glasses. That's it. And you couldn't tell. She lived to 108. And this is Lydia Sanchez. Lydia is a wonderful person, another centenarian, knitting hats for babies in the NICU. And I think she knitted about 800 hats a year for babies. Well, while she's a centenarian. So they all still have things. Anita Mackey. I tend to ask people, how old do you think she is? Anita Mackey is African American and wonderful, wonderful woman. She was a volunteer. And mind you, many of these people work in healthcare. Anita Mackey was, she was her parents were the last generation. Her dad was the last generation of slaves. And she lived in Riverside, California, which is like 30 minutes south of Loma Linda. And here she is sitting here at 105. You would never guess. And when I'm interviewing her, I think she knew I look stressed because she was a social worker at the VA hospital for veterans. And she had a lot of hardships because she's African American. She and living in a white neighborhood, so she had to learn how to protect herself and how they help. Her mom died in childbirth when she was really young. The baby and the mom both died. But Anita was prepared for the unexpected. And here she is asking me about my life and my stress while I was trying to ask her. Very wonderful. 105. Dr. Ellsworth Wareham. He's a heart surgeon here at Loma Linda. I believe he lived to about 104. He's a centenarian working well into his 90s, not doing surgery, but still involved and working. Um, he is my one centenarian I interviewed that had height. Everybody else was like smaller, but he's the only one I interviewed that was over 6 foot. So if you're taller, there's still hope. But he was like 6'2" or 6'3". Okay, so when I look back and see about the centenarians, they were from all over the world. They came from I have some from South America, Mexico, China, Japan. They were everything under the sun. Okay. They weren't all, it wasn't just Caucasian people, it was everything. And then, okay, before I show you the next screen, I asked them a question. Tell me about hardships in your life. And they would say, we have no hardships. And I thought maybe they don't understand the word. Tell me about the challenges in your life. Oh, we have no challenges. And I thought, maybe they don't. And then I said, okay, just get out of my own way and tell them, share about your life. Tell me about your childhood and moving on. Oh, the stories they told was completely filled with hardships and challenges. Everything and anything you can imagine. I was just, I fell off my chair. And it wasn't just one, it was all of them. And then I realized something. That was my first aha moment was it's their perspective, is how they view it. They didn't see it as this thing, just part of life, and they're going on. Let me show you. So when I look at the themes, so in qualitative research, you look for themes and you start grouping and making codes of what they say. You transcribe all the interviews and then you analyze it kind of like data. I don't know if you guys do any qualitative research, but it's very painstaking. We had to use software. I had a team and we'd go through and make these code books. I about had a heart attack. And then after this qualitative, then I ran from it. I said I need a data set, but I did learn a lot from them. They went through the Great Depression. So I don't know if you guys know, the Great Depression is when everybody lost all their money here in the US and it was really bad times. So they had economic hardship, which we may be seeing again. They had physical, emotional neglect. Okay. Some of them were abused kids. Food scarcity. One of them had no money. In fact, when she went to the dental clinic, the dentist recently, and this is at like 80 or 90, said, have you ever had rickets as a child? She'd had rickets, and they can tell from her teeth. And It was because they didn't even have like there was no dairy, no milk, no vitamin D. She they paid a nickel and it was seven, I think seven kids in their family. The dad had left, they had a mom, and her job was to walk. She didn't even own shoes till she was 12. Walk barefoot, walk barefoot down to the local dairy with a old coffee can, and for a nickel, she would get skim milk to feed the whole family for the day. The kids were all assigned one fork, one spoon, actually just one fork, and that was their utensil to eat whatever. And if they lost it, there was no replacement. So it was very scarce. Many of the centenarians lost a parent or a sibling died. Because if you think back then, they didn't have Tylenol. Penicillin was not even around till like 1945. Okay, so nothing like that. Then they had family separation. There was wars, household mental illness. Some of the parents was breakdown. There was addictions, abuse. They would witness violence because if you like, one centenarian told me him and his sister, they'd go into town and it was scary. Sometimes they would be witness to like a community beheading. Like if that was the crime, that's how they took care of it. And they went through pandemics. Do you remember the Spanish flu, 1918? They have survived multiple pandemics. Okay, so they really shifted my mindset because all the centenarians had a minimum of like four ACEs in their childhood, which is means the more ACEs you have or these adverse childhood experiences, the greater likelihood you're going to have either risky behavior or chronic disease or shortened life. So seeing this shifted my perspective. Our centenarians didn't live long just because of likely one thing. It was a combination because these hardships interact and magnify the poor outcome. So if you have many, it doesn't just stand alone, they interact. It's that invisible dragon. Ah, when I look at the positive themes, so I then look to see how do they balance that? And I'll talk a little bit about the science that's published that show how these interact together to offset the harm of the hardships. So these eight themes came out. One is the majority of the centenarians were farmers. So they had I call it a kinetic life. They were outdoors and working very hard. So the first two is kinetic life, nature engagement. They had no car, so when they would walk, it was usually an hour to get to school, wherever and back. They ate simple foods. They didn't set out to be vegetarian, but they didn't have money for a chicken. If they ate the chicken, there would be no eggs. So they would eat simple foods. Water, they had this resting reset because when the sun went down, there was no electricity, so they went to bed. They'd get up with the sunset, and so they would have that kind of their rest was more natural. They didn't have sleep number beds, they didn't have melatonin, they didn't have all the things you see today, but they were well rested. They worked with family and friends very closely because that's how they would accomplish things. They all had a strong faith foundation. They believed that the actions, they were connected and then they took actions. Like when the pandemic hit or when the Great Depression hit, they often went to church to find support or figure out how to handle things. It wasn't happy childhood or life throughout their entire life, but it was hopeful. They believed the actions they take was going to better them. And then they helped one another a lot. So, scientific research individually, every single one of these themes, when I look in the literature, has a positive health benefit. And so I call this, you guys, this is your ABCs. So we're getting back to learning your ABCs from centenarians. You live an active, balanced, connected, determined life, not a la carte health. What we kind of practice today, even as Adventists in Loma Linda, is more make sure we are vegetarian on Sabbath, we get to church, and then we kind of pick and choose. And I call it a la carte health. A la carte means you pick the things you like and you try to do that. But what we forget is really it's all of these things working together, your ABCs. Active is kinetic and nature. Balanced is your foods and rest. Connected is your faith and your family and friends. And determined is your mindset, and you're going to help others. Okay. And this in here is really the key for how you prepare for the unexpected. Doing these things and what sets you up for what life may throw your way. So I want to talk to you about what this means. Why do they live so long when they have these hardships? It's a paradox. Okay. So we're going to talk about hardships. We're going to talk about here in a minute. They had not only all these hardships, what does that mean? But they not only lived a long, but at the end of their life, it was abundant, right? I'm asking them, do you have regrets? They don't. Okay. So when I asked Lydia, what's your advice for longevity? She says, this is her, remember to have faith through stressful times, leave behind the things that hurt you, and always help others. No matter what, not just the good times, but even in the bad times, it's remembering this. Remember, have faith through stressful times, leave behind the things that hurt you, and always help others. And here's Lydia needing one of those baby hats for the NICU, right? For the babies. Okay, your first key concept. The Adventists, the centenarians, the ones that live that long, genetically diverse group. Okay, so in epidemiology, I teach there's migration studies where we will follow people that Japanese, so one racial group like Japanese living in Japan, moving to Hawaii, and then moving to California. We look to see certain conditions from cancer to heart disease. Does it change based on where they live? Okay, if it changes their risk based on where they live, um, it's more likely environmental. This is a good indicator because they are a genetically diverse group, yet they share similar longevity. It's a signal for it's a signal for the lifestyle factors. Okay. They're a diverse population. So it really means there's something strong about living long because they don't all share the same genes. And a second key concept, if we think they were rich, they had money. No, they didn't. In fact, they had to become more resourceful with low resources, which is a great thing for public health to learn. We oftentimes don't have funding to do what we need. You have to be very resourceful. And other Blue Zone countries, Nicoya and Okinawa, they have some of the lowest income, yet they're a Blue Zone. Okay. Their lifestyle probably helped them to overcome because they worked together. A third key concept to think about, they had minimum ACE score of 4. These are those adverse childhood experiences. So things in their childhood that may impact their overall life. Okay. They had all of these ACEs, extreme poverty, mental illness, family separation, community violence, all of these hardships. One of them, she had an ACE score of 6. An ACE score of 6, they tell you in the research, it will shorten your life by 20 years. Okay, an ACE score 6, shorten your life by 20 years. She lived to 108. So the physician, and he's an epidemiologist, he found that ACEs were linked with this bad outcome. I called him up and said, have you ever heard of a community that shows signs of resilience against ACEs? He said he'd never heard of it. I said, well, I think Loma Linda is your first community that is able to overcome this. And he's was on a journal for Kaiser Permanente, and I published this research in his journal. Oh, a fourth key concept. We ever wondered about the mask wearing? I will show pictures in epidemiology course I teach of all the old time when they would wear masks and they look so funny, huh? Back then we wondered, right? Like this. Now we understand. Having gone through COVID, we understand this look, right? The centenarians, they went through it. And so they have wisdom for how do you handle times when you have massive pandemics? What do you do? I just say they lived an extraordinary life. Okay. Guys, their hardship gave them experience. And across their life, they drew on this experience and it opened doors of opportunity. That one centenarian, she became a teacher in a one-room schoolhouse. She was a foster kid before there was a foster system. She's the one that had the one spoon, and they said she had rickets. She was so poor, but her siblings got together and helped to pay for her schooling, so she went on. And she ended up becoming a one-room schoolhouse teacher in a region in Kansas, a state in the middle of the US. And she got the most notorious school. Teachers would not stay because the kids were really naughty. In fact, she outlasted everybody, and the mothers were so excited they knitted her a blanket and this special quilt that she had saved because she was such an amazing teacher teaching. But it was because of all the hardship she went through, she drew on that when she became a teacher. Every single one of these factors that I just showed you, all these factors, when the scientists have studied them individually, they find they dampen the inflammation in your body. They call it inflammaging. So one of the things that how stress works is through inflammation in the body. So if they measured biological markers, they would see an increase in this inflammation in your body. All the stress from air pollution to your daily stress to all these things promotes that inflammation in your body. Inflammation, it's linked with like life shortening. Okay. Every single one of these habits individually dampens inflammation. And together, it's likely this synergistic effect where the positive is magnified. So I imagine it like bubbles in your life. So if you're in the middle, you have these bubbles around you. And sometimes some of the bubbles are gonna, like, you guys are really young. I'm looking at you. You guys are young and strong. So you may have kinetic life bubble, maybe really big. Okay. Whereas, your rest bubble might be a little bit smaller because you guys stay up all night with your homework. However, as time goes on, some bubbles will get bigger and some won't. But the more that you balance these and practice these, the better the protection. Okay. And we see even in childhood, children that are harmed and they drew labs to see they already have elevated level of inflammation in their body. And that's why likely these things, even already that they're practicing across their lifespan, probably enhance their ability to overcome that hardship. Okay. So what do I call Loma Linda? I don't call it blue zone. I call it this resiliency capital. Okay. It's the first one to show signs that you not only live long life, but you overcome tremendous hardship. And the beauty of this, okay, so when you put into practice kind of these habits, it's what I call a ripple effect. And there's studies backing that even grateful, like this grateful for what you have, like the centenarians had a lot of gratitude. Gratitude, they have studies, it's linked with your happiness. Okay, so it's a shift in your perspective. So they not only were better able to withhandle the daily from colds and things like that, but it also is linked with their overall happiness. And when you're happy, it's linked with your positive outcome. If any of you guys play sports, there's a whole field of psychology that looks at your mindset for even like professional sports. Anybody play baseball or anything like that? Nobody play. I can see you guys. So if anybody plays sports, yeah, the positive mindset is a huge thing. The centenarians had it. Okay. So practicing those habits have this ripple effect. So the bottom line from what I learned, this is the first community with signs of overcoming stress, hardship, pandemic, right? Their daily habits dampen this stress inflammation. And so this has implications for not only how we handle all of these chronic stressors that we know of, daily life. Anybody have to drive to class and there's traffic? Yeah. Okay. How many of you feel, oh, I feel my blood pressure going, oh, this person just cut me off on the freeway, right? I live in Loma Linda. It's used to be quiet. Now it's getting very stressed. This helps you to understand and to handle the unexpected. The practicing multiple of those 8 factors, there's a positive synergy capability. And by that, I mean they work together and make the outcome even greater. And this is how you equip yourself to withstand the storms. We don't know when the storms are going to come. I heard yesterday, California, there was a number of earthquakes across the state, right? I didn't feel it here, but if there's a big earthquake, being prepared like the Centenarians, it helps you for the unexpected. Like Anita Mackey, when her mom passed away, she was 7 years old and she was prepared. She had been preparing all along to handle the unexpected. So, okay, every good class has homework. This will be even the professors. This is your homework, okay? I'm going to show you guys. So I call this your bounce back. Anybody play with Slinky when you're young? Okay, so sometimes we play with these things, you let it go down the stairs, right? And it bounced back, unless you really hurt it, but usually it bounced back. So if you guys, we're gonna know, right? How that you're going to have more hardships. That's a guarantee in life, right? It's never going to be easy. We know we're going to have these. So the point is you're going to strengthen your mind, your body, and your spirit, all three. Okay? And it starts with a desire. Like sometimes we don't desire it until we hit rock bottom. And for me, that was the stress of 10 years ago finding my high cholesterol, my high blood pressure. And by the way, today I don't have this, right? It's the stress. Okay. So it starts with a desire you want to change things. You don't like it. You have to change your pace and I'm going to show you this. You have to readjust your focus. You have to make informed steps and you have to remove the limits. What is possible? Okay? This is Mildred Stilson, okay? Mildred Stilson, I believe she lived to 104. Here she is at 100. She is a physician, one of 7 females in her medical school class here in Loma Linda. She is a pathologist trained, but then she went into the mission field. Okay, she worked with her husband in, I believe, Africa, and they would be the only 2 physicians in this town for miles and miles and miles. And she shared one story how sometimes her husband would go into a town and then in would come, and she'd be left with her and her young daughter that was like 9. She'd be left and they'd have an emergency come in. She told me one time emergency came in, she had to do a surgery on somebody that needed surgery. And she would tell her daughter, I have the anesthesia in a bag. I'm going to tell you when to remove the clip. You let the anesthesia flow. When I tell you, I will do the math. I will do everything. When I tell you to stop, you will turn it off. Okay, so it was just her and her daughter. And you think, wow, she was prepared for the unexpected. Okay. And I'm going to show you what she has in her hand in a minute. But guys, it starts in the everyday slowing and using nature throughout your day. So one of the things I say is, even if you have 2 minutes, standing by a window and observing nature. And just, or getting outside, going for a walk, doing something in nature because it helps to reset. Hulda Crooks, she is one of our centenarians. She has a book out. We have a park here in Loma Linda. I hope your professor, when he comes to visit, we're going to take him to the park. It's named for Hulda Crooks. Okay. She was a mountaineering woman. She trained in my school because she also was a faculty in my school, and she would train for summiting mountains. And I'm going to show you a picture of her in a minute, but she said, sameness leads to madness. To help your mind, you have to go to the outdoors to the ever-changing season. Okay? Sameness leads to madness, is what she said. Staying indoors all the time is not good. You need to use nature. And then I say number 2 and number 3, the upstairs check-in. and use the often unused tool to fight stress. And so what Mildred is holding is a Bible, okay? And in Isaiah 40:31, it says, "Those that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength." And be anxious for nothing. So one of the things I do if I was there for you guys, I typically laminate like little cards. For the nurses during the pandemic, I laminated Bible verses like these onto cards. And so each day when they'd have to go into the hospital in the pandemic, I would tell them, take one card in your scrub, and then when you have 2 minutes, you go by a window and you look out at nature and you recite the verse to yourself. You're going to have to find tools to help yourself to switch your brain off the fear and the anxiousness and you have to stop the loop. And it starts this cycle, and you have to catch yourself. Use nature and use the verses as best you can. Okay, you guys should evaluate your schedule. How many of your calendars look like this? Okay, yes, yes. A lot of us, this, and it happens without us even knowing it. Okay, so we have to, and basically, your calendars are an indicator of what are your priorities. Okay, and what is your motivation, and does it include resiliency? The more red you have on there, the less white space, the less time you have to de-stress and relax. And sometimes some of the best memories come, you guys, in that white space where you didn't plan something. So, epidemiologists, we call it removing the pump handle. And this is attributed to Dr. John Snow way back when in England when he had an outbreak of cholera and it was coming from the water. Okay? And he had to tell the town, you have to remove the pump handle. They didn't want to, but eventually they did. And slowly the cholera epidemic stopped. Okay? This is your pump handle, and you have to think about, are you happy with your plans and living your purpose in life? So it's important to sometimes take time, like once a month, sit with your calendar and identify what are you doing. Otherwise, you're going to be busy living a life you may not have planned for yourself. Okay, a word of caution. The world it wants to increase your speed, it wants to increase your fear, increase your stress, and increase disease so that it can rob you of the ability to enjoy and live abundantly. Okay? The world thrives on convenience, automation, the rush, and the busyness. And if you contrast today with the centenarian life, it was more slow and steady pace. And even more now, it's going to be even more difficult as everything in time is always competing in what we have. We have to try to find ways to slow that pace. How many of you drive in your car and you turn off the radio and just to let your mind wander, right? Like, so now I don't even drive with the radio. I just to hear or see or be aware of even the people that are around you. Okay, this is Hulda Crooks here. She is summoning. She holds the record for the oldest woman summoning Mount Fuji in Japan, which is the highest in Japan, and Mount Whitney here in the US. And I think she summited those in her 90s. Okay. And I say, based on what I learned from her, you need to slow your pace so that you can run the right race. And she was known, I say notorious, Hulda Crooks always took students and others with her. So even today, you guys, if there's a place by you to get out hiking, take your classmates and go try it and start taking them with you. This is Dr. Ellsworth Wareham. Here he is mowing his lawn at 100. Okay, so these guys are not they're not in a bed wasting away. They're very vibrant. And here's another life truth I tell you. The things that you don't have time for in life are often the things that extend your lifetime and make it even better. And this is what I learned from them. The things that you don't have time for in life are often the things that extend your lifetime and make it even better. Every day, whether or not you realize, you usually make 32,000 choices. Believe it or not, even to show up to class today, that was a choice. Good choice, right? Because you get to hear all from the centenarians, but every day. So think about that, okay? And you can't wait until the weekend comes. It's not catch up. You don't play the catch up game. Every day is thinking, okay, am I living my purpose? Is it abundant? And am I making good choices? So here's one of your homework. Thinking about your schedule, declutter your schedule, walk, run, work outdoors as best you can to take care of body, ignite your faith. Think about gratitude. Even in the hardship, it's really hard. But even having this gratitude mindset, being a blessing and encouraging others, like I learned from the centenarians, they forgave quickly and apologized often. Take the path not forged. Dr. Ellsworth Warren wanted to be a heart surgeon. That wasn't even heard of. In fact, some of the countries, he became the first surgeon ever doing heart surgery in that country. I believe it was Pakistan. Pakistan. So take the path, possibly not forged. Keep your wits. Anita Mackey, the African American, her dad was a lawyer, or he was a self-trained lawyer, and he would help counsel people. They'd come to his porch and he'd give them advice. And he'd say, he who loses his head loses his case. Okay? He who loses his mind loses his case. So keep your wits, right? Stand up and move that mountain and never give up. Okay. You guys, if you don't have or you've never heard of a vision board, you can make one with your goals. Okay. Connect with your desire to change where you want to go. It's just a cork board. I have one after meeting them that I put on there pictures of things and positive things that I want to do or goals I have. I keep that with me of where I'm going. It helps to remind you of the steps because some days it's hard and you lose track, but having a cork board, I'd say, especially for you guys, something to think about. This was a book I published for families, um, more about what the centenarians did. So I think that's about it. But basically, the bottom line is like if you feel you're stuck and in this limbo kind of or on this cycle, sometimes breakthroughs happen when you begin to change those daily habits and begin to think about how do I remove that to pump handle? How do I slow, even though everything about my life is telling me it's not possible? There's probably things that you can do. So I want to open up now. I will stop the share and then take questions from you guys. Hopefully that wasn't too
Thank
fast.
you. No, no, it was great. Thank you so much. Pessoal, ela está abrindo aqui para perguntas, comentários. Alguém gostaria de fazer alguma pergunta?
Everybody's stressed now.
Professor, I would like to know how many centenarians participated in this, your first research?
The first one was 20 centenarians.
Wow.
Yeah. And
It's a
that's hard
lot
to
for a
find.
collaborative research.
Yeah. It's hard to find them, but the first was 20 centenarians. And then we began interviewing on down to their kids and then the younger generation, but the first was like 20 centenarians.
Então, a primeira pesquisa dela foi com 20 centenários lá. Ficaram com dúvidas? Algo que passou que vocês não entenderam? Querem que eu peça para ela repassar, traduzir?
Does anybody there know any centenarians?
Ela está perguntando se vocês conhecem algum centenário.
A gente tem
Algum.
O Ivan está fazendo uma pesquisa com idosos, mas que dá de Engenheiro Coelho tem um, né? O pastor Neville, que é o primeiro reitor do NASP, ele é centenário, né, Ivan? Eu acho que ele já tem mais de 100 anos, né? Quiser comentar com ela, Natália, o primeiro reitor do NASP tem mais de 100 anos, vive aqui no NASP, no
Our
interior.
first, our first dean of UNASP is a centenarian. He's still alive, and he's an acquainted of our student Ivan, who's there watching us.
Oh, see, amazing. Like I think there are more Adventist centenarians than we even realize all around. And you would never guess that they are a centenarian, I'll bet.
because they don't appear.
Não sei se consegue ouvir a gente agora. Não, eu ia só comentar aqui a respeito do que ela falou agora no finalzinho sobre que por dia a gente tem mais ou menos 32 mil opções de escolhas, né? Então, realmente, eu pelo menos nunca parei para pensar que seriam tantas situações assim em um único dia nessa questão de escolhas. Para mim seriam bem menos. Então, é algo interessante, algo a se pensar com relação a isso.
Verdade. He's saying that he's impressed about your slide, about the 32,000 choices, that he never stopped to realize how many choices do we have to make per day. And it's
Yeah.
really a lot.
Yeah, so and if I was there, I would give you guys, I usually make these green bracelets, like little jelly bracelet that say everyday awareness or everyday resilience. Because part of the change and the shift in the mindset is realizing that you have these choices, but then number two, how our lifestyle or how our life is shifting away from what the centenarians practiced. And can we bring back, even in modern times, some of those practices, right? Like even the building that you're sitting in, is there a window in that classroom? Is there a window?
Yes.
Two windows, two windows. So can you see nature out that window?
Not quite.
It's the building.
Even in the buildings that we have is thinking, how do we create buildings where you can view nature? Or if we don't have it outside, can we bring it inside so that you are surrounded by this, like intentionally thinking things like that?
We are surrounded by nature here.
Yes.
See? And how
But
many of you
not
guys
the window.
go, how many of
Not
you
the
guys
window in this
go,
room.
how many of you guys go outside every day to either walk or exercise or do something outside? Yeah, yeah. And you know that they have studies where if you have difficulty sleeping, so they took these people for 1 week, they said, hand over your cell phone. We're going to go out into nature camping, and then we're going to see what happens. In just 1 week, their circadian rhythm reset, and they had a better time sleeping because they were tied to the setting and the rising of the sun. And their stress levels dropped. And
It makes sense.
physicians will usually ask me. So when I give this presentation to physicians, they say, okay, how long? How long do you have to be in nature? And I will say 10 minutes. They have studies where if you go outside in the nature and you're looking at the trees and they check your cortisol before and then after you go in nature, it took 10 minutes and your cortisol level dropped, meaning that's your stress hormone. They can check in your mouth, 10 minutes.
So little for such a huge
Yes,
improvement.
yes, yes.
Mais perguntas, gente? Comentários?
Let me ask them, what are things that they think, what are the things that are sources of stress for them? I'm curious.
Pessoal, quais as principais fontes de estresse para vocês? Ela quer saber.
Trânsito.
O quê?
Traffic. Trânsito na
Não.
praia. Trânsito.
Trânsito. Traffic.
Oh, yes, yes.
O que mais?
Para vocês.
Why? I'm just kidding.
Não ouvi.
Veio, linguagem.
I'm just kidding.
Só o trânsito?
Não, não de sono.
Work.
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 Wife. Wife.
I said why, but I was just joking.
Um falou que é a esposa, wife.
His wife.
His wife.
Privação de
Yes.
sono, Natália. Privação de sono. A nossa lactante aqui, privação de sono, que veio com o bebê de 2 meses, assistir a aula, amamentando.
Sleep deprivation, because she
Yes.
has a baby.
Yes. Oh, she has baby. Yes. You saw my baby at 1. It's a tremendous time.
Nossa,
Uterus.
Deus.
Yeah.
Até nossa, agora me arrepiada. Mas confundi. Nossa.
Então, o principal é trânsito, trabalho, dormir
Tem
pouco.
gente que tá até falando da mulher aqui, tá?
Brazilian government.
Também.
Yes. You know, that is a shared stress, I think, worldwide. That is why I ran.
Natália, contas para pagar, boletos,
Bills to
dívidas.
pay.
Bills.
Yeah, this is important.
Yes.
We
Bills.
all have them.
Bills, yes. You know, the stress from government is why I ran for city council. So in Loma Linda, I'm the first female in 20 years to sit on city council. So I take what I learned from this, and now I'm even applying for grants for a fire department. How do we make a blue zone fire department? And what does that look like? And it's sleep is a huge factor, even in the light. Like, how do we look at the built environment to make it as promoting sleep as much as possible? Even your clocks in your room, if they have that blue light, right? You have to rethink of, does that affect my sleep? Is there a light from outside that might come in your window? Do you have pets that you sleep with that maybe be disruptive, right? How many sleep with a dog or a cat in the bed? Yes, yes. So, yeah, I tell you, this touches all aspects of your life, but once you learn about it, then you think, how can I go and make a difference and be a light? So you may have to run for politics. Anybody there in government or like student association or anything?
I don't think so.
Nobody. Okay, so now I've
Cargos
planted the seed. You have
políticos,
to.
nada, né?
Yeah. And if
Not
you
yet.
all come to Loma Linda, you are welcome to come here and to see city council and the university as to how things are run, we make it, how we promote it. You are welcome to
you.
come be guests. Yeah.
Thank you. It's going to be a pleasure for us. Ela está integrando, né, as coisas da universidade com o poder público, que ela se candidatou para um cargo lá no conselho da cidade, como se fosse vereadora, assim. Então, para ajudar a melhorar a qualidade de vida das pessoas, principalmente pensando na construção dos prédios, para promover horas de sono melhor para as pessoas, etc. E que se formos para lá, ela nos apresenta isso tudo. Mais alguém gostaria de perguntar ou comentar? All right. So, Márcia.
Eu falei que eles não têm mais pergunta, mas você não pode falar isso para a nossa convidada, né? Porque eles querem terminar logo a apresentação para ir embora, né? As minhas filhas aqui, né? Mas eles estão muito felizes, viu, chefe? Que hoje teve lanche. Ó,
Muito bem.
olha
So
aqui.
Marcia saying that they're very happy with your presentation, but they have to finish some presentation they were doing, the students. Now, and this is why they're not asking so much, because they have to finish their presentation so they can go home.
Yeah.
But they liked a lot. So thank you so much in the name of all of us for your presentation. It was certainly very constructive for all of us. Will give us material to think over days and days about our habits, our choices, and what we're making out of our lives if we can live longer and well.
Yeah.
Thank you so much,
Okay.
Mr. Spencer, for your
Obrigado.
time, for your energy
Thank you
here
so
with
much,
us.
Dr. Rhonda. Obrigado, pessoal.
Bye, you guys.
We hope to meet you soon in person.
Yes, for sure.
Yes.
Okay. Take care.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Gracias. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Então, gente, boa apresentação
Então,
aí para
pessoal,
você.
boa aula, bom semestre, bom final de semestre Pessoal,
Obrigada.
Márcia, vocês me escutam bem aí, né? Então,
Sim,
finalizando
sim.
esse semestre, lembre que agora a gente tem